So I'm going to revisit the soccer ball face from the star person video and show you how to do some basic facial features, how you can manipulate those facial features, and how you can get exactly the range of emotion that you want, from very realistic to very cartoony. Let's get started. The ball has some very specific choices as well. For one, it's just round, and two, it has a bit of a crisscross along it. And the crisscross is extremely useful because the crisscross is directional. If you get good at drawing a crisscross along a ball shape with these kind of volumetric, you can see how I'm kind of using a volumetric line across there to indicate a ball shape with it. It takes a little practice, but you can get used to it fairly quickly. That is super useful in the sense that it follows, if we think of that sort of cross, the horizontal cross shape there as an eye line, you can kind of see where it becomes super useful in terms of just being able to show our character looking back and forth. Some people might kind of look at this and think, well, there's not much expression going on there. There's not much anything going on there. Au contraire, there's a ton of expression that could be possible with just a little stick figure. Just like get good at sort of making the ball do whatever it's going to do. This is very useful in and of itself to be able to, because most people are very worried about having to make a character look around or trying to get like some proper perspective going. If you have to make a character look up at a very steep angle, for example, this is a great way to kind of practice that. Something to remember with when you are making a character look up or down at very steep angles like this is that the facial features, usually the nose, the mouth, and the brow line, will be stacked a lot closer together. You see how close these are together all over in just this section or just that section, where it's a little bit more spread out in the more front on facing angle over here. Yeah, just experiment with that and know that there's not like too much wrong that you can do here. There's nothing. I'm fairly open and flowy with this kind of working out of things. Hairline's usually right behind the character's head like that, if you're really worried about adding that sort of detail. But yeah, I'm fairly open and flowy with this sort of stuff. I don't worry so much about really getting into detail. I see my students really stuck on detail a lot because they are at the beginning of their drawing journeys. They're not like, they're just experimenting currently. They're getting their drawing strong. They're getting their sense of how they put a frame together a little bit. They're practicing the basics and so on. And yeah, I remember filling sketchbooks full of just heads, just like drawing these little heads, trying to draw maybe better heads than this. If you really want like, an anatomically broken down sort of version of this rather than just this kind of balloon shape of a head, you can always go with, I forget who I heard this one from, like maybe it was like an Andrew Loomis or a Proco, one of those guys, but like a more anatomically structured head is actually something more like this. You just like make it stand out a little bit ahead of everyone else, is actually more structured like two eggs together, with the neck coming out from that central point. The central point there being kind of where the ear is sitting. So the eye line I think the eye line or the brow line sits approximately where the top of the ear is, and the bottom of the ear is, I think, where I usually put the base of the nose. And then the mouth is about halfway between the bottom of the chin and that line. That's just not exactly, I wouldn't say that's like fully like Glenn Vilppu level anatomical correctness. That's just what I do when I want to make something look a little bit more anatomically, a little bit more anatomically correct looking. Even there, I just immediately went with like the brows off the edge because I was just feeling that. And this may look a lot like, one thing I noticed when I did this was like, this feels like a lot of head to sort of cover with hair or something. But once you kind of get to the idea that the hair is actually like a really big sort of almost helmeted cover for the rest of the face, you kind of get used to it. The neck is also fairly long, and it doesn't sit, we don't sit the neck on top of the head like this. We sit the head into the neck. So the neck will actually kind of, if we round the base of the neck off like that, the neck actually sits in the shoulders like this. So back of the neck will sort of come down, and the other side of the shoulders will come down that way. So it sits in there. This character looks a little bit weird right now because they look like they're really leaning forward. But yeah, that's trust the process. Trust the process a little bit. Also, the base of the clavicle there is sort of like these, is where these lines, the clavicle lines come from to the center of the neck, come to the ears on the side there. And yeah, that's also like clavicle sort of comes out from shoulder to shoulder and like a little bit of a smiley line like that. So that's about as much as I get into actual anatomical breaking down at all. For one last thing I would like to show you is kind of how you can start to caricature the soccer ball head, which is very simple. You've already seen me do it a little bit earlier on here. So let's go have a look at it. So the soccer ball head, as we've sort of said, the eye line can you can put the eyes dead center on that thing. Once you have an eye line, you can do a couple of things here. Normally add eyebrows, which are very expressive. Eyebrows can do all sorts of things. They can indicate all kinds of emotions, and you can stop there if you want. But if you want to do eyebrows and you want a secondary level of emotionality, you can do lash lines. Lash lines are also extremely indicative of emotion. Like if you can do the kind of cartoony like half little circle there with the brow line, and it just like a character that's surprised will be like ultra surprised, or a character that's angry will be like ultra angry. You can really kind of go ham there. The actual eye parts, I barely. Lots of people like really hyper detail eyes, and they don't know where to land with eyes. I've kind of landed on just literally making eyes a couple of dashes like that. That's where I landed after 15 plus years of drawing. Next thing that you might want to put in, of course, is the mouth. The mouth is maybe the biggest thing that will show you character design. And the mouth can kind of the mouth, especially on a cartoony character, is very elastic, and you can place it pretty much anywhere on the soccer ball you want, even like press it out of the soccer ball if necessary, if you want to. So can you do the eyebrow lines too? You can, if you want the eyebrow lines to go above there, for example, or you want the lash line to kind of break there, that also works. The final phase of that, more just to like give structure and not make the center of this face look a little alien, is to add the nose. And the nose can literally just be a little shadow like that, a little half moon like that, or it can be you can go for a full schnoz looking thing. So I've been experimenting with Muppet noses now and again, because I kind of like the little extra, I don't know, I like the extra characterization that implies, like a big blobby nose, or like a little teeny tiny nose, whatever it is. I quite enjoy that. Obviously you can put ears in there as well. Ears can be very characteristic of a person, like whether they stick out a lot, or whether they are, maybe they're part of like, maybe they're just extremely small. Maybe ears can be a good indicator of like age, for example. So I'm doing a couple of children characters for a short film right now, and like the way that ears sort of stick out beyond the face, maybe when the children have like, especially when the children like have kind of like masses of mussy hair or something, is a little bit different and characteristic of children compared to adults. So yeah, there's quite a bit that you can kind of play with that. Another thing about the mouth, of course, is that obviously the mouth is not just a closed line, but the mouth can be a big old bean with teeth, with sort of teeth lines in there. Let me just pull this up a little bit so we can kind of see. So the mouth can be all sorts of shapes, really any shape that you want. There's lots of types of shapes that are, through many years of like cartooning, like newspaper cartooning and so on, we tend to associate with certain emotions. So something like this here, where the mouth kind of pulls down a little bit, might be like horror, or I don't know. It sort of indicates these little muscles at the corner of your mouth that don't pull down unless like quite an extreme emotion is being shown. It's kind of the opposite similar thing to when like a smile doesn't meet a person's eyes, for example. When a person smiles with their eyes, there's these little lines will appear under the eyes, and it'll sort of push the cheek matter up there somewhat, so that you can indicate it looks a lot more genuine than someone's just like smiling brightly, but the eyes are not affected at all. That's when people kind of say stuff like, oh, the smile doesn't meet their eyes at all, or the eyebrows are not reacting. Like it's very fun when you like start counterpointing parts of the face, where it's like there's this big broad smile, but the eyebrows are not reacting, or the eyelashes are just, the eyes are a little bit heavy and hooded, for example. Looks very villainous, and very like, it looks like this person's really, it looks a bit sharkish almost. Very useful extra little thing if you want to indicate, making a character look up versus making a character look down. So you can kind of see how the little nose there is either up, and we can maybe even do a little like half circle there, versus a little like upward smile type of shape there. And yeah, that's this one up top kind of looks a little bit more like I'm using the shadow almost of the nose to indicate that the character's looking further up, that they're indicating up. But I haven't even drawn in like the shape of the nose on top of that yet, but it is. So that's how to add more character to your star person face. I hope you enjoyed the video. Take care.